Usually when we talk about survival, we picture like someone stranded in the wilderness.
Right, yeah. Out in the woods somewhere.
Exactly. Making a fire out of twigs, fending off a grizzly bear, finding fresh water in a stream. We sort of expect the danger to be external, wild, and most importantly, really visible.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when the wilderness is, well, your own living room? Like, what happens when the predator isn't a bear, but the person making you breakfast every single morning?
I mean, it completely upends our fundamental understanding of danger.
Yeah.
Because when the threat isn't out there in the woods, but sitting right next to you on the couch,
Yeah.
it usually arrives disguised as safety. And that is, it's just a much, much harder trap to escape.
It really is. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a truly gripping story, a psychological thriller by Tiffany Crum titled "This Story Might Save Your Life."
It's quite a ride.
Oh, absolutely. We're exploring a narrative that brilliantly layers, like this complex mystery and exploration of invisible illness and the really suffocating realities of coercive control.
Right, and the overarching focus of our deep dive today is to examine this really fascinating, deeply unsettling collision. In this story, we watch the comedic, hypothetical survival tactics discussed by the main characters on their hit podcast basically slam headfirst into the harrowing, very real survival tactics needed to escape an abusive marriage.
Yeah.
We are looking at the stark contrast between the theoretical dangers we invent for entertainment and the quiet domestic dangers that trap people in real life.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Tiffany Crum, she plays with our expectations right from the jump.
Oh, big time.
So picture this. It's Los Angeles. The Santa Ana winds are howling through the canyons. Those hot, dry winds they literally call Satan's breath.
Just super ominous right away.
Completely. Everything feels chaotic, static, and on edge. We're in this basement studio with a wildly successful podcast duo, Joy Moore and Benny Abbott. They're recording. They're absolutely at the top of their game, bantering and laughing about how you might survive, like being swallowed whole by a whale.
As you do.
Right. And then out of nowhere, a sudden blast of wind. A window shatters.
Wow.
The power goes out with this massive whoosh. They are plunged into total darkness. And by the next morning, Joy and her husband Xander have vanished without a trace. Long pause.
It's just an incredible, inciting incident. I mean, the shattered glass and the sudden silence, it sets the stakes immediately.
It really does.
But to understand why Joy's disappearance is so incredibly alarming to Benny, we actually have to look backward. We can't just start at the broken window.
Right.
We had to examine the hidden vulnerabilities that define Joy's daily life long before that stormy night ever happened.
Yeah, because on the surface, Joy has this pristine, enviable facade. She has a hit show with millions of downloads, a beautiful home, and this handsome, attentive husband who seemingly does everything for her.
She cuts her meals, manages her schedule.
Exactly, anticipates her needs. But beneath that perfectly curated surface is the grueling reality of an invisible disability. Joy has severe narcolepsy. And I know we see narcolepsy used in media sometimes as just like a quirky character trait, but how does it actually function here as a physical vulnerability?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the mechanics of her condition are really laid bare.
Yeah.
Narcolepsy isn't just, being really tired.
Right.
For Joy, it involves a fundamentally broken on-off switch in her brain regarding sleep and wakefulness.
Okay.
It means experiencing sleep paralysis, where she is completely awake and conscious, but her body is essentially locked down and frozen.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. It means sudden, unavoidable sleep attacks that feel like being dragged backward under molasses. And crucially, it involves hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations.
Wait, what does that mean?
It basically means vividly hearing or seeing things that aren't actually there as she is falling asleep or waking up.
Man, I cannot imagine trying to navigate daily life with that level of sensory unreliability.
Right.
There's this one scene detailing the origin story of her diagnosis that really stuck with me.
Oh, the car crash.
Yes, she's a 16-year-old kid, totally undiagnosed, and just desperate for some normal teenage independence. She borrows her best friend Vanessa's boat of a car, this 1973 El Camino.
Massive car.
Huge. They're just rolling down the street, and suddenly that neurological switch flips. Her brain simply shuts down.
She tries to fight it, right.
Yeah, she's fighting it, physically slapping her own face to stay conscious, but she cannot win against her own chemistry. She crashes that massive El Camino straight into a Canary Island palm tree.
Yeah, that crash is a very visceral representation of her loss of control. And it highlights a fundamental truth about her life moving forward, which is that she must rely on others.
Right.
Her environment has to be meticulously managed. Her medications have to be perfectly timed. If she wants to survive, she has to trust the people around her to catch her when she falls.
Wow.
And this establishes a deeply ingrained dynamic of control and dependence.
But wait, didn't Benny also take care of her? Like when they first met in the early 2000s, they were at this packed, sticky floored club called the Echo.
Yeah, classic LA spot.
Yeah. Joy has a severe sleep attack and collapses. She's trapped in sleep paralysis on the concrete floor, totally aware but unable to move, while a cover of The Cure's love song plays.
Such a vivid scene.
And Benny, who is a total stranger at this point, finds her. He taps her shoulder, snaps her out of the paralysis, and helps her up. He literally steps in as a caretaker in that moment, and it sparks their massive friendship.
He does.
So Xander manages her schedule and her pills, and Benny helps her when she collapses. How are you, or how is Joy, supposed to tell the difference between genuine caretaking and a cage? Like, doesn't an invisible illness like this make someone the perfect target for a controlling partner? Like a predator sensing a weakness, they can easily disguise their control as caretaking.
Oh, absolutely. And that is the exact friction the story wants you to wrestle with. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are looking at the psychological mechanics of coercive control.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, Benny accepts her vulnerability and builds an equal partnership alongside it. He helps her up and lets her walk. Xander, on the other hand, weaponizes her vulnerability.
How so? Because it seems like a really fine line.
Think of it like a computer virus disguised as an antivirus update.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It tells you it's there to protect your system, but it's actually quietly shutting down all your firewalls. Under the guise of being the ultimate protector, Xander isolates her.
Right.
Coercive control is rarely physical violence at first. It's a slow, methodical stripping away of a person's autonomy. The frog in boiling water.
Yeah.
Xander uses her narcolepsy against her. If she thinks someone is stalking her, or she hears a strange noise in the house, he casually reminds her of her hypnagogic hallucinations.
Oh my God. He uses her medical reality to make her doubt her own sanity.
Exactly. It is structural gaslighting, built entirely on her need for medical support.
Which brings up something so important for you, listening right now, to think about. Someone's need for help as a lack of agency.
That's a great question.
Because Joy has immense intelligence and agency. She is just physically trapped by a warden disguised as a saint.
And because she is so geographically and emotionally trapped by Xander's suffocating oversight, she realizes she cannot just pack a bag and walk out the front door.
Right. He'd stop her immediately.
Exactly. When the marriage truly devolves, her survival demands an incredible level of covert resourcefulness. Which brings us directly to how she plotted her secret escape.
I want to get into this transition because the breadcrumbs she leaves behind are fascinating.
Yeah, they are.
Following the shattered window and the disappearance, Benny is left behind. And instead of waiting for the police, who aren't really taking it seriously enough, he starts digging.
He knows Joy wouldn't just vanish.
Right. He knows they don't just miss a recording session, but I'll be honest, I was initially so confused by what he found.
Oh, the audio files.
Yeah. Benny is listening back to their recent podcast recordings, and he notices Joy keeps bringing up the name of their old crappy apartment building, Chez Moi.
Right.
Like they're talking about a raccoon in the attic, and she pivots to Chez Moi. It felt like a completely random tangent for a survival show. Why did she keep doing that?
It wasn't a tangent at all. It was a password.
A password.
Yeah. Joy knew Xander monitored her emails, her texts, her phone calls. She knew she couldn't speak freely. She couldn't just reach out to Benny and say, I'm in danger.
So what did she do?
She used a concept known in cybersecurity as steganography.
Steganography?
Yeah, hiding a secret message in plain sight. She weaponized her own podcast and her draft of a secret memoir to leave a trail. By awkwardly shoehorning Chez Moi into their banter 3 times in 3 weeks, she was creating an anomaly.
An anomaly.
Exactly. In a closed system, like a 2-person recording, anomalies act as signals. Benny realizes this isn't just nostalgia. He uses Chez Moi to unlock an encrypted file Joy hid on her computer. She used their shared history, something Xander would completely dismiss as meaningless, platonic nostalgia, as the key to her literal survival.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because once Benny unlocks those files, he doesn't just find a diary about her marriage. He uncovers the dark truth behind their show's massive financial success.
Ah, yes. The protein powder.
Right. It revolves around this toxic protein powder company called Shake Awake. And I have to ask, how does a comedy survival show get tied up in poisoning its own fans?
Well, it comes down to the real-world mechanics of how dietary supplements often bypass rigorous vetting and how corporate backdoor deals operate. Dozens of fans were poisoned, suffering severe liver failure because of this Shake Awake powder the show heavily promoted.
It's just awful.
And Benny and Joy were horrified when it happened, thinking it was just a tragic accident, a failure of their vetting process.
But it wasn't an accident, was it?
No, it wasn't. Benny discovers through the encrypted files that Xander orchestrated a backdoor equity deal. Xander traded free, aggressive advertising on their show for personal shares in the Shake Awake company.
Unbelievable.
Xander knew the product was bypassing standard regulatory safety checks, but his greed blinded him. And when people started getting sick, Xander actively hid his financial ties to the company. He insulated himself, effectively serving up Joy and Benny as the public scapegoats for his own sociopathic ambition.
That is just staggering. He risked the health of thousands of people and the careers of his wife and her best friend just to pad his own secret portfolio.
Yep.
And Joy's method of exposing this, it's brilliant, but it's also terrifying. It's like a digital escape room where the keys are inside jokes. If you don't catch the nuance of the joke, the victim stays trapped. If Benny doesn't catch the Chesmoy signal, Joy's entire plan fails.
That is the terrifying burden of a breadcrumb trail. It requires a perfect receiver. It raises an important question for all of us, for you listening right now. Who are your safe persons? Who in your life knows you well enough to read between the lines if you were in trouble and couldn't speak plainly?
It's a heavy thought. And Benny's ability to decode those signals is immediately put to the ultimate test, because right as he is putting the pieces of Xander's financial crimes together, the narrative completely flips.
Oh yeah, the hunter becomes the hunted.
Exactly. The police find Xander's car, a vintage MG, crashed deep in the Angeles National Forest, and Xander is dead inside it.
But Joy isn't with him.
Right. Joy's nowhere to be found, and suddenly, Benny is arrested. He's framed.
It's a crazy turn.
The police show him a...
Well, it requires a high level of digital manipulation, which perfectly aligns with Xander's character.
Okay.
Xander didn't need to hack a bank. He just used the administrative access he already had. By spoofing IP addresses and routing the authorization through Benny's designated corporate logins, Xander created a digital paper trail that pointed directly at Benny.
God, that's diabolical.
He recognized that Joy was slipping away from his control, so he laid a trap designed to utterly destroy Benny, the only person offering Joy a safe harbor.
The manipulation of truth, the weaponization of technology, it's just relentless, because the digital framing isn't even the worst of it. We find out about the stalker.
Oh, this part is chilling.
For months, Joy thought she had this obsessed, deranged superfan taking pictures of her outside her house and posting them online. It was driving her mad. It made her terrified to leave her own property.
Naturally.
But Benny discovers, through this whole neighborhood conflict involving a local guy named Emil and a paparazzo named Ted, that Xander was the stalker.
It's the ultimate manifestation of his need to manufacture dependence. Xander literally hired the paparazzi himself.
Unbelievable.
He paid men to hide in the bushes and photograph his wife, telling them it was a PR stunt to boost their brand. But the psychological effect on Joy was absolute terror. It made her rely entirely on him for protection from a threat he created.
And it doesn't stop at the perimeter of the house. Benny realizes Xander planted hidden, motion-activated cameras inside the air vents of their home.
Yeah.
He was monitoring Joy's every single movement right from an app on his phone. It makes you wonder, is the real horror of this story the murder mystery or the absolute invasion of privacy? It makes you wonder how much our own smart devices and Ring cameras are watching us, turning our sanctuaries into prisons.
And this brings us to a psychological concept known as the panopticon effect.
The panopticon.
Yeah. The horror isn't just that Xander is watching her. It's that Joy eventually figures out she might be watched at any given moment. When you know you are under constant surveillance, you modify your fundamental behavior. You police yourself. Xander turned their smart home into a prison. It's a very modern reality of domestic abuse where the Internet of Things, shared iCloud accounts, Ring cameras, automated locks, are used to monitor and trap a partner.
How easily could your own data, passwords, and daily routines be weaponized against you by someone who has access to your devices? It's terrifying.
Truly.
And thank God Joy realized it in time to use it against him. We find out, through Benny's ex-wife, Luna, who is an absolute powerhouse lawyer, by the way, that Luna was secretly helping Joy.
Luna's great.
She really is. Joy knew Xander was watching her through the vent cameras. She knew he would see her packing a bag or acting erratically, so she had to maintain the panopticon illusion. She acted perfectly normal, going about her day, while Luna actually smuggled her out and hid her in a secret domestic violence shelter.
Joy's escape required an almost superhuman level of emotional restraint. She had to perform the role of the docile, disabled wife for the hidden cameras while quietly orchestrating her extraction.
Which brings us to the ultimate climax, and the core message tying this entire source material together. Because breaking free from that terrifying digital and emotional surveillance is what truly defines survival here.
Exactly. If we synthesize the major themes we've discussed, we see a brilliant structural contrast.
Let's look at that.
The show within the story is built entirely on comedic, hypothetical survival. Escaping a whale's mouth, surviving quicksand. It's an entertaining game.
Yeah.
But this hypothetical game directly and darkly contrasts with Joy's harrowing, very literal survival of domestic abuse. The connective tissue of the entire work is that stark shift from the hypothetical danger to the literal danger.
It's one thing to joke about a sword fight with a pirate. It's another to realize the person you married is systematically dismantling your sanity.
Right.
And the climax of this literal survival is devastating. Joy is hiding in this off-the-grid shelter. We learn she's secretly pregnant. The secret she kept even from Benny because she was so terrified of how Xander would react. And the compounding stress, the absolute fear, the necessary tapering of her narcolepsy medications to protect the pregnancy. It takes a terrible toll. She suffers a devastating miscarriage and begins hemorrhaging in the bathroom of the shelter.
It is a moment of profound, heartbreaking vulnerability. The very thing she was enduring all of this to protect is lost. She is rushed to the hospital, completely exposed, and this is where the narrative threads finally converge. Benny, who has unraveled the framing and the clues, finally finds her.
He does, and the absolute truth about Xander comes out.
Yeah?
Xander wasn't murdered by Benny. What actually happened was Xander discovered Joy was gone. He realized she had seen through the cameras, seen through the pills, and completely outsmarted him.
It's his worst nightmare.
Exactly. In a fit of sociopathic rage and panic, he fled. He initiated that $1 million transfer to frame Benny, and while racing his vintage MG up the winding, treacherous mountain roads of the Angeles National Forest in the middle of the night, he lost control. He accidentally crashed. His own web of deceit is what ultimately consumed him.
It is a fitting end for a man who spent his life trying to control every variable and every person around him. He was killed by the one thing he couldn't control.
Wow.
Joy's narcolepsy undeniably made her vulnerable to his abuse. But her deep, unshakable friendship with Benny, a platonic bond that eventually beautifully blossoms into a romantic one, gave her the safety net she needed. It wasn't the police who saved her. It was the community she built.
Read slowly. And that brings us to exactly a year later. Joy and Benny are standing backstage at the historic Orpheum Theater in Los Angeles.
Oh, I love this scene.
It's amazing. 2,000 fans are out there in the seats screaming their names. They aren't talking about quicksand anymore. They are launching their real memoir titled What Doesn't Kill You, a tragicomic story of survival. They step out into the spotlight completely unhidden, telling the exact truth of what happened to them.
It is a powerful, definitive reclamation of their lives.
So what does this all mean?
Well, let's reflect on their fictional catchphrase. What doesn't kill you makes you a survivor. Throughout the story, that phrase evolves. In the beginning, it's just a glib sign-off for a comedy show. By the end, it is a profound truth. Survival isn't just about breathing or escaping a crashed car.
No.
True survival is about reclaiming your autonomy. It's about taking the narrative back from the person who tried to write it for you. It's about finding your voice and telling your own truth, loudly and without fear.
It really is, and it leaves you with something heavy to think about. Consider the digital footprint you leave every single day, the text messages, the emails, the location data on your phone, and consider the conversations you have with your closest friends. If everything went dark tonight, and you had to leave a trail of breadcrumbs for your best friend to find you, using only the inside jokes and memories that the two of you share, what password would you use?
Long pause.
It makes you look at your own home and your own history a little differently, doesn't it? It really does. You expect the danger to be out in the wilderness, but sometimes the call is coming from inside the house. You hear that hot Santa Ana wind rattling the glass, and you realize that the real storm isn't outside, it's sitting right across the table. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.